Welcome to another episode of Parenting in the Far North. I'm your host, Ariane Aramburo. Today's guest is Meredith Noble, a self-proclaimed adventurous Alaskan mom. Love that. She's also a businesswoman, having co-founded Learn Grant Writing. She also has a passion for helping others create the life they want, all while juggling the duties of mom. Please welcome to the podcast, Meredith. Thanks and welcome, right?
Thank you.
How you like that intro?
That's strong.
I
was like, goodness, you can write my bio in the future. That's fantastic.
And if you're listening, we're twinning today. We just had the good vibes of this, like, I don't know, what you call this, a blue?
Yeah, we are color blocking in blue.
I love
Periwinkle.
Well, before we kind of dive into some of these topics, tell us a little bit more about yourself and your tie to Alaska.
Certainly. Okay, so I grew up a fifth-generation cattle rancher in Wyoming.
Nice.
Yes.
Okay.
And I went to Gonzaga University for college, and there I started working for an Alaska company as a grant writer, helping get engineering projects funded throughout really the U.S. and Canada. And when I had the chance to move up here, I say it was the best decision I ever made. So that was about 10 years ago, came to Alaska, where I've been able to, I suppose, live out my Alaska adventurous dreams.
Yeah.
And most recently become a mom and, build a life I love up here.
I love that. So also, before we get into, the grant writing process, and you were coming on to talk about this podcast, it's been a minute because you've been a little bit MIA within the state of Alaska. You were in McCarthy with your 9-month-old.
Yes.
And working still.
Yeah.
Okay. How did that come about? Tell me about that.
This is great. It's why I knew we needed to have this conversation after I experienced what it's like to try to work remotely. Yeah. I was like, it's going to look a little different. This is truly parenting in the North.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So what ended up happening is I was pregnant last year, and I was finally not super sick. And I went out to McCarthy because I think there's nothing that sleeping on the ground can't fix in terms of a bad attitude. There's just something about the magnetics of the earth that'll just clean things up.
Yeah.
And so I would hotspot working at the toe of the glacier remotely for a couple hours or at the potato, go to the swimming hole, and then in the afternoon I would seek out what land is for sale because there's no Zillow in McCarthy. It's all word of mouth.
Yeah.
So I ended up finding this piece of property I really liked, 10 acres, really close to the bridge, if anyone's been there, where you drive and the pedestrian bridges, and decided, you know what, I think I'm going to go for this. I need a space where you can go and work and access that deep work state of mind, really, where you can produce things. I think we're craving it, where you can produce things that you're proud of, whether it's a book or a big project, and just get out of the day-to-day inundation of city life, while can you also raise free-range kids truly by definition? And you can there because there's no cars. It's just a very different in safety and environment. So that was the bet I placed, got some land, and then this was really the first summer of going out there and starting to plan what it would look like. So my husband and I got an RV, stayed out there for a month. I pitched a tent on the property. That was my office, sent up a desk.
Your office was in a tent. That's so Alaskan.
Very. And I would say it was an experiment that definitely worked out, affirmed it was heading in the right direction. In that, it was cool to see there's actually a lot of other families that are out there. So I think there is something here to people trying to balance, how can you just live a little bit more remotely connected to our landscape in a way that allows you to still keep momentum with the real world.
How was that when you had to unplug, or when you first got out there? Did you kind of have this idea of how it was going to go, and then you were like, oh, this, you had to adjust?
Well, I debated bringing this up this morning, and I think I'm going to because it's just such real talk. So my husband has a Super Cub, so he flew out in 3 hours. Me, took 2 days because I'm hauling an RV. I literally knew nothing about RVs.
Yeah.
With at the time, 6-7-month-old baby by
just
myself.
You, the baby, in the RV.
Yeah. So I pull into Glen Allen the first night and put him down to sleep and go get into the truck because mosquitoes are terrible, to eat dinner, call my husband, and then so it's a matter of 30 minutes. And I come back to the RV and I hear this muffled cry that was wrong. And I run inside. And my baby had been suffocating. He had somehow pulled,
oh my goodness,
a stinking mattress pad over his head. Don't even know how he reached it. I mean, it was, thankfully he wasn't blue, but he was very, he was out oxygen deprived. And it was, I called 911 and everything worked out, but it was a wake up call for me of okay, you're going with a baby into a remote place and all risk factors are changing. This is a great dream, but I need to also be cognizant of the fact that there are different risk factors. So that was a really interesting wake-up call. And then when I got there, I was kind of guilting myself for like not wanting to go out and hang out at the bar or whatever, or to socialize or any of that. I didn't want to do any of it. I just wanted to read books, be with my baby, and relax and rest. And in Alaska, we don't think of rest in July.
We don't. Everybody is out, go, 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 go.
Yeah, but it ended up being, when I finally relaxed and allowed myself to settle into that, it was exactly what I needed. And I think we forget that it's like to give ourselves the permission to have rest. Like it's such a foreign concept that even though we know we need it, when it comes time to take it, I mean, it took me a good 2 weeks to feel like I actually settled into it.
Yeah. So now that you've been through it for a month, you're like, you could go back and do that. Have you thought about what that would look like in the wintertime? Or are we thinking just kind of mainly summers here out there? Or, you know, depend?
My vision is to build a series of tiny houses out there and a lodge for creative work. But the tiny houses would provide a space for, being able to have a little bit more permanent structure. I mean, at the end of the day, an RV is still an RV, right?
Right. On wheels.
But, I think that there's an, so if anyone's listening that's interested in this concept of like, because I do think, I'm interested in doing these as long-term leases for others that just want to be out there that are kind of seeking similar goals. I think the goal is to spend all summers out there. And then I do think for the adventure of it, a winter or two would be fun. So we'll see.
Wow. Ed McCarthy. And that is a very interesting story. Thank you for sharing. I'm glad is it your boy or girl?
Boy.
A boy. Your son is okay with
Thanks.
that.
Me too.
He's a strong one. All right. So let's talk about the grant writing. Obviously have some experience with this, like you, went with college and then after college. But how did you get into wanting to start learning how to do that? And then how did that transition into kind of what you're doing right now?
Yeah, this is the thing that I want to scream from the mountaintops for anyone that is not fulfilled in the work that they're doing and they're wanting to do something else. So when I graduated during the economic recession, there were no job opportunities. I was so desperate I applied to Pita Pit, and I'm gluten-free. Like that's when you know you're at a dead end, right?
Keeping it real.
So I ended up doing all of these informational interviews because I cared quite a bit about the water industry. I found that to be a really fascinating sector, but I wasn't an engineer. I was a marketing major. So that led to meeting all these organizations, engineering firms primarily, and discovering they needed help helping their communities get grants to make these projects happen. Water, infrastructure projects, stormwater projects, you name it. And so that led to I can write grants, which was a way of using this kind of marketing knowledge, but becoming dangerously knowledgeable about a lot of topics without having to be an expert. And I find for anyone that's just can't do the same thing day over day, and you want to be, just know a little bit, like you're the most interesting person at a dinner party, like become a grant writer.
It sounds so intimidating. I mean, grant writing, I think of like pages on pages, like where does one even begin? How does...
Okay, let's just be real.
Is that able to be broken down?
Is this more intimidating than you public speaking? I mean, most people, let's be real, would rather write a grant behind a desk quietly than have to speak in public.
And I tell people, I'm like, this is like riding a bike, so it just goes to show the two different perspectives of the worlds that we're in. Like, I'm like, this is crazy. Like, grant writing seems wild.
Yeah, I mean, I think about it like baking a cake. Maybe you learn how to bake a cake with cake mix and follow a couple steps, add an egg, add oil, bake, you got this. But as you progress, maybe you want to take on a more complex cake recipe with meringue on top. Well, at the end of the day, it still has the same ingredients, right? Like egg, flour, sugar. And that's the concept behind a grant. Like you have a narrative, you have a budget, you have a plan, you have a team. Like it's the same pieces. It's just a matter of what's the complexity of putting that all together.
Gotcha.
So it's a skill that absolutely someone can learn. And what's neat about it is that it's a skill that you can do remotely. Like it's a good job. I get a lot of moms, like a lot of people and dads that are looking for what is a career I can do that is fulfilling, flexible, and still pays well.
I love more grant writing. There you have it. And you're big on your social media presence. Do you do like courses? Do you offer, kind of the how-tos and the step-by-steps for folks? And how has that response been?
Oh, it's been lovely. So I co-founded the Global Grant Writing Collective. It is a community, a course, and a coaching experience all in one. So it's a year-long program. Most people stay for 3 years, where you come in maybe having no grant writing experience, and you learn how to make your first $15,000 freelancing, gaining experience, and then from there decide, do I want to land a new job, seek a promotion, or actually scale this puppy into a full freelance business. And we've got 700 customers right now all over the world.
Wow.
And I've coached, a few thousand over the years. And so it's neat because now, I mean, so to give you a little bit of kind of like the small Alaska startup story, I left pledging to never write a grant again because I had burned out, but never say never.
Yeah.
And fast forward, I ended up thinking, well, what if I could actually teach others how to do this? Because they were always asking for me to teach it over coffee, which, spoiler alert, you can't learn a skill
Right.
over
I was going to
coffee.
say that you might require
Like too much coffee. We're all going to be too caffeinated.
You'll be
okay?
hyping around.
Exactly. And so I ended up moving to Valdez because I needed to just get away from city anchorage distractions and focus. So there's a theme here of like seeking out deep work.
Yeah.
And met my co-founder in this small little town. The pandemic hit. Everyone wanted to write grants. So we spun up like essentially an agency overnight. And everybody liked, well, how are you finding clients? How are you charging? How are you actually making this work? And look at you guys are still getting out and hiking in the middle of the day. Like you're preserving your quality of life, self-care, values that I didn't want to give up. And that led to what became the Grant Writing Collective. And I mean, we started it literally in a tent. It was the same thing like what I did this summer. We were in a tent. We took our meetings in a hot tub. Like it was fun, but it just goes to show like you can actually, it doesn't have to be exclusive. Like you can have a career you love that also allows you to have fun and flexibility.
And you said you work with a lot of moms and, dads too. We love the dads also. But, for moms in particular, have you had any testimonies or what does a story stand out for you of a mom or a woman that was just like, wanting to do this, maybe was a little bit burnt out, and then diving into it, this is the first thing that they're learning, and then their success story. Like,
I have so many that I'm like, where do we even? I'm like scanning my Rolodex, like, which mother should I tell the story on? But I'll take Jess. Okay, so Jess was in teaching administration in Hawaii her whole life. Then the pandemic hit. Her kids are sent home. She obviously is like, what the heck am I going to do? Because I need to, support my kids at home, but also we need to make some money. So she ended up turning to grant writing. She made $50K in her first year. She'd literally never written a grant, never run a business, had a lot of money mindset issues because as teachers, you're taught to just like take what you get. So there was a lot of rewiring there. And she now has won over $3 million for grants in Hawaii. She's got a small team. She just bought like a Tesla, which was a dream for her. And she's basically, she's turned it into, it is her full-time job. And she's loving it. So I think it just goes to show that like you can really surprise yourself with what's possible in a relatively short amount of time. Like I like to tell people, like if you gave yourself 1,000 days of showing up inconsistently, but consistent, like you're consistent, but it doesn't have to be perfect.
It doesn't have to be the same every day, but you just show up.
You make a little commitment to yourself every day and you work on something for 1,000 days, your life can be completely different. When I ask people like paint me your vision board, what they want isn't a private jet, right? It's like time to actually just be present with your kids or make more time for hobbies. Yeah, like these things are not like actually all that expensive or whatnot, but we're traveling more. And I think just the biggest piece that I get to see all day is like people are making these dreams happen, but they're making a commitment to themselves and they're showing up for 1,000 days to do so.
Yeah, and you got to put in the work. It requires the work. It's not like you just get it overnight, but look at the reward that you see in over time. And a year is nothing. Like
exactly.
My kid's 8. I'm like, you were just born. So 1 year would just seem like it would fly by. I'm sure you come across a lot of people with the imposter syndrome.
Oh yeah.
How do you address that?
It's like one of my most fascinating topics. It's in my book. I wrote a book, How to Write a Grant, Become a Grant Writing Unicorn. I have a whole chapter dedicated to this because if you're feeling imposter syndrome, you're doing something right. So I actually wasn't feeling it for a couple years where I just wasn't getting that feeling. And I realized I was playing too small. So I actually use it as an indicator that you are expanding yourself. You are growing. It is a good thing. It actually helps with performance. Nerves allows us to do better. Feeling like, oh, I shouldn't be in this room. I'm going to get figured out. All of that is, I think, actually like good. You're growing. You're not playing it safe and living small. So I always like to help my community members recognize that when they're feeling that, celebrate it. Know that that is actually an indication that you're on the right path.
I love that. That means you're growing and expanding. Yeah, because it's it's real. It's a thing. And, especially nowadays with social media, there's kind of that pressure to just show up and, you see these influencers and they're just making money and kind of living that life. And I think a lot of people, envy for that. I mean, the pandemic just kind of really blew that wide open.
I also think it's not always the truth. A lot of times it's like, is that really a viable of a business as it makes it look? So I think it's just so valuable. I mean, I guess my advice on that is like surround learn from those who have been where you want to go. Because weirdly, as much as I like to think I'm an intuitive person, getting yourself there on your own intuition will send you down a lot of rabbit holes and dead ends. So like the biggest gift you can give yourself is like, don't idolize those folks only. If you can learn from them and they've got like the receipts to prove it, that they know what they're talking about, awesome. Because that's how you shortcut your path to success. Learn from others that have already made the mistakes.
Let's talk about failures and how, some failures you may have had in trying to get to where you're at and how you've used that as, fuel for your fire.
Oh my gosh, I'm like, maybe I got another nice juicy topic. I mean, so here's what I think is the difference between people that succeed wildly and those that are struggling, is that I accept and expect to fail because I don't consider it failure. I see it as I either succeeded or I learned. And so I'll give you an example. So we've been tinkering around with AI and grant writing since it kind of first became like mainstream, right? December 20, whatever, 2 years ago, right? And I've had a lot of failed attempts. Even most recently, thinking I was going to actually go into business with this like AI group of engineers in Canada. We're going to launch this business. And that literally fell apart a week ago. And I was really questioning, like, have I wasted all this time? Was this such a big failure? And then I realized, I'm like, no, the difference here is that like I'm willing to consume those failures for freaking breakfast instead of living in fear of failure and then not taking any action. Because any action's moving me forward, but not doing something is also a choice. Like it's so. I think my take on failures, and I'm very transparent about them. If you follow me on LinkedIn or Instagram, like I'll tell you about failures all day long. I think, the biggest thing is just recognizing, like, to not be afraid of it because, like, the people that are really succeeding, they're actually failing all the time. They just don't even see it as failure.
Yeah. And that transparency, I love that. And I think that's important. That's what draws people in because while other moms or folks may be looking at you like, man, she's doing this and doing that. That's awesome. They also see like kids are in the background. You're trying to do a video and you don't, take that out. I mean, there's a time and a place for all of that. Right. But showing up as just who you are as a woman running your business and also being a mom, how do you kind of...
Yeah, I mean, it's been a humbling sandwich. Like last week or yesterday, my nanny had to cancel because she was sick. And it's like, oh, but I have a live call coming up. Like, baby's getting big enough. I can't just like lay him down and walk away. Like, what am I going to do? So it's definitely, I think one of the best things that's happened by becoming a mom and serving a lot of moms is getting additional perspective I didn't have beforehand on what it actually means to be a mom, working for yourself and making that happen. And I think one of the biggest like missed opportunities for a lot of people is not recognizing that you can buy back time and support at a relatively low cost.
Yeah.
And moms have to do it and more because there is no such thing as doing it all.
Yeah. And being a mom, that's one of the hardest jobs on the planet. If you can be a mom, we're super women.
Yes. I remember I made an email. I sent out an email after I came back to work, and one of my points was like, moms are freaks. Like, freaking awesome. So, incredible.
That's stuff. Yeah. Have you always had this drive and this passion? Where does it stem from, do you think?
Well, my uncle said everyone needs a magnificent obsession. And I think about that a lot because I thought, well, why is my magnificent obsession business? And my obsession really is helping other women try their hand at entrepreneurship. Like, that's the thing that makes me really happy because I've seen the freedom it's given my life, the joy, the happiness, the options, the impact. And I want that for every woman in my life because I think all too often we just don't even know it's available to us when it's not that far away. So, I mean, I think we're all have something in us that's a light. And if we can get it quiet enough to get into it and see what that is and allow it to come out. Like, everybody has it. It's just a matter of, has it been gone dormant because you're burnt out?
And doing a ton of things and moving and shaking, which that's interesting. You said it might be quiet, which you went out to a very remote area and kind of that's how your, ideas and visions kind of come to. What would you say to someone who maybe is on the same path, but they have like a ton of ideas and kind of don't know where to land? Any advice for kind of narrowing that down a little bit and pinpointing it?
I mean, my belief is that every idea should be I do believe in deep, wicked focus and not allowing yourself. So here's the best analogy I received on this. So let's say every day you get 7 kicks. We've got 7 soccer balls that are lined up on the field and you get 7 kicks. So are you going to be the type of person that kicks the ball once, so there's like, it's gone forth one kick, all 7 balls?
Yeah.
Or are you going to kick one ball 7 times and it's now almost on the other side of the field?
Ah, that's a really great analogy.
Yeah. And so if you think about it every day, if you just do one kick on all 7 balls, nothing's really getting all that far.
Yeah.
But if you kick one ball and you get that sucker all the way to the end zone, then you can come back and move your next project forward. So my whole deal was I'm working on this business till it gets to $1 million in revenue, which we did. Only 2% of women-owned business founders even get to that figure.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, 3-4 times more men do. So it's really important that women hit that, like, grow their businesses to this level. But it was because it's the only thing I focused on. I got lots of ideas, and this year is the year that I started to get really distracted by them.
Yeah.
And I do believe that distraction is like the greatest killer of wealth, or honestly even energy. Because every idea, if you've read, oh my gosh, what's his name? Slow Productivity by Cal Newport. Big fan of that book. That idea is that like everything we want to do comes with some level of admin or overhead cost in terms of time. So it's like even if there's a part of all of those ideas that fire you up, there's also a part of all those ideas that is just the brunt work that's also not that fun.
Yeah.
So we have to manage that. So it's like, I'm a big fan personally. I think there are people that can do moving a lot of things forward, but if you can find that thing that you really just want to double click on and go all in on, grow that to $1 million.
I love the ball analogy, the soccer ball. Like when you envision it, you're like, oh, that does make sense. It's simple. It's a very simple concept.
Yeah.
How do you address folks that want to go down this path? They want to become an entrepreneur. They're maybe learning grant writing for the first time, taking this big leap of faith, and then they got the noise around them of, the family, the friends, or the spouse, or just people in general kind of wanting to knock them back of keeping them in their place. And
it's interesting you'd ask that. I think the bigger issue isn't others not supporting you. It's actually our lizard brains saying, this is getting scary. Go back to safety. I've even been experiencing it lately myself with that McCarthy vision of building a series of tiny houses. Like, it got real, and I started to play small and stop taking action. And so I realized, I'm like, ooh, I'm doing the exact same thing that I coach a lot of my community members through. And so I don't think it's often that there's not support on the home front or whatever. It's often that this is the way I think about it. So when we set goals, we can operate in the field of, let's see if I can get this right, the field of predictable, the field of possible, and the field of potential. And the field of predictable is like, if you've done it before, you know how it works, or if you need it to happen. Now, so that might just be even like, we all have goals that are like, we know we can do this, right? We can figure it out. The field of possible is actually where things get fun. Like, hey, what if I built an entire career? What if I started to work for myself? What if I took off every afternoon at 2? But that requires courage and doing things you've actually never done before or seen before. And it requires actually a lot of nervous system work to be able to like allow your body to know I am safe to do something I haven't done before. And that is actually the bigger thing to start overcoming and moving through, more so than dealing with any of the naysayers or whatever.
Yeah. Maybe kind of start doing some things that are, you got to get uncomfortable. To get comfortable, you got to get uncomfortable. Well, I know you offer the course and whatnot. So what do you have? What's ahead for you? What's next for Meredith?
Okay, well, I mean, that was an active play. The things that are up ahead for me, to be honest, is double clicking on health again.
Okay.
Because without health, we don't have anything, right?
Yeah.
And so I've found that I've got a couple sticky energy patterns that I want to clean up and clean out, because I think, you will only rise to the levels of your own personal growth. And so I think it's time that gets the attention it deserves. I think work has had always a disproportionate percent of my abilities and skills and time and energy. So that, and then, I mean, I'm really fired up about this McCarthy thing. So that, and then, of course, continuing to love on our members in the collective.
So if folks want to get in contact with you, what is the best way? You can give your website. I know you're on social media as well.
Yeah, so website's learngrantwriting.org. Super easy. And Instagram, you can find me at meredith.noble.
I love that. I always like to give our guests the kind of final say, last word. It can be whatever you feel, advice, or, whatever's on your heart. Anything else that you want to mention or add or share?
Okay, I'm going to leave with 2 book recommendations. Okay. My favorite book right now for this self-help journey is Bending Reality by Victoria Song.
Okay.
It gave me a completely new way and unlock for how to think about processing emotions instead of letting them get trapped in the body. So I'd recommend that. And then the second book I'd recommend would be Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell. And I think this is a really important book for parents to start thinking about little ways you can get some leverage in your life and get support, especially moms if you're overworked. And I think both of those books have had a really big impact on my life, and you might enjoy them as well.
All right. Well, some great recommendations there. I really enjoyed talking with you. I feel like we could just sit here and press pause and just go. So thank you for the inspiration too, from, one woman to another. So thank you for coming on. Also for Parenting in the Far North. Thank you all for listening to another episode. And don't forget to like and subscribe.